The rain had stopped, but Grace still stood outside the towering glass building. Employees hurried past her with cheerful greetings. "Good morning, Grace." She forced a smile. "Good morning." No one noticed that her hands were trembling. She took a deep breath and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, she stared at her reflection. Maybe today will be different. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. Before she could even sit at her desk, the intercom buzzed. "Grace. My office. Now." It was Mr. Adrian Cole, the company's celebrated CEO. His voice was calm, almost gentle. But Grace felt her stomach tighten. Inside the office, Adrian didn't look up from the documents on his desk. "You are 3 minutes late." Grace blinked. "I'm sorry, sir. The meeting was scheduled for 8, and it's only." He raised a finger without looking at her. "When I'm speaking, you don't interrupt." Silence. After several moments, he finally lifted his eyes. "They told me you graduated with honors." "Yes, sir." "I don't believe it." Grace swallowed. "I've never met someone who makes simple tasks look so complicated." She lowered her head. "I'll do better." "You always say that." He tossed a file across the desk. "Fix these mistakes." Grace opened it. None of the documents had been prepared by her. She wanted to explain. Instead, "I'm sorry, sir." "Exactly." He smiled. "At least you're learning." Across the city, Samuel stood behind the pulpit after the Sunday service. The congregation had gone home. The senior pastor remained seated. Without warning, he spoke. "You embarrassed this ministry today." Samuel looked confused. "Sir, what did I do?" "You smiled too much." Samuel frowned. "I was welcoming visitors." "You were trying to draw attention to yourself." "No, sir." "You see." The pastor leaned forward. "You always defend yourself. That's pride." Samuel lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry." "You should fast for 3 days." Samuel nodded silently. As he walked away, another pastor whispered, "Don't argue. We've all been there." Samuel turned. "What do you mean?" The man forced a weak smile. "You'll understand." Then he walked away. Hundreds of miles away. At the teaching hospital, Amina rushed between patients. She had worked 16 hours without rest. The hospital director approached. He smiled warmly in front of visitors. "This is Nurse Amina. One of our finest." Everyone applauded. As soon as the visitors left, his smile vanished. "You embarrassed me." Amina looked shocked. "What happened, sir?" "You breathed too loudly while speaking." She stared at him. I didn't realize." "That's because you don't think." He walked away. Later that evening, Amina locked herself inside the staff restroom. She cried quietly. Not because of what he said, but because she had begun believing him. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Daniel stood at attention inside military headquarters. His commanding officer slid another mission folder across the table. Daniel looked at the assignment. His heart sank. It was nearly impossible. Again. "Sir." The commander smiled. "Problem?" "No, sir." "I thought so." As Daniel left, another officer whispered, "They're trying to break you." Daniel stopped walking. "What?" The officer looked around nervously. "I never said anything." In another country. May stared at the email from her professor. Subject, dissertation feedback. Her hands shook as she opened it. There was only one sentence. Still disappointing. No explanation. No corrections. No guidance. Only those 2 words. She closed her laptop and stared out the window. For months, every effort had been dismissed. Every improvement ignored. She wondered if she truly didn't belong in academia. That same night, Grace arrived home exhausted. She sat on the floor instead of the couch. She couldn't find the strength. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "How's work, my daughter?" Grace smiled through tears. "It's fine, Mom." "You sound tired." "I'm just working hard." "You've always been strong." After the call ended, Grace burst into tears. She wasn't crying because work was difficult. She was crying because she no longer recognized herself. The confident young woman who had walked into that company 2 years earlier was gone. Replaced by someone who apologized for mistakes she didn't make. Who questioned every decision. Who feared every morning. The next day, she quietly bought a small notebook. On the first page she wrote. Date. Time. What happened. How it made me feel. "If no one else believes me," she whispered, "at least I'll know I wasn't imagining it." She slipped the notebook into her handbag. She had no idea. Someone else had once started the exact same diary. And that diary had never been found. As Grace leaves the office that evening, the elderly security guard quietly calls her back. "Miss Grace." She turns. He hesitates, then reaches into his pocket and hands her a faded photograph. In it, Grace sees a smiling young man wearing the same company ID badge she now wears. Written on the back are 6 chilling words. He kept a diary too. Run. Grace couldn't sleep. The faded photograph lay on her bedside table. She picked it up again and read the words on the back. He kept a diary too. Run. Her heart pounded. Who was the young man? Why had the security guard waited until now to give her the photograph? And what had happened to him? The next morning, Grace arrived at work earlier than usual. The lobby was almost empty. She noticed the elderly security guard standing at his post. She walked toward him. "Sir, thank you for this." She held up the photograph. The old man looked around cautiously before speaking. His name was Michael. Grace listened intently. He was brilliant. Everyone liked him. What happened to him? The guard lowered his voice. One day, he just disappeared. Disappeared. They said he resigned. But you don't believe that? The old man sighed. I've worked here for 27 years. I've seen many people leave. But Michael. He didn't leave. He vanished. Before Grace could ask another question, a manager walked into the lobby. The security guard immediately straightened his posture. Our conversation never happened. Upstairs. Mr. Adrian Cole entered the office floor. The atmosphere changed instantly. Employees stood straighter. Conversations stopped. He smiled warmly. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. Grace noticed something strange. Everyone admired him. Everyone feared him. Both could be true at the same time. As Adrian walked past Grace's desk, he paused. I trust yesterday's mistakes won't happen again. They weren't mine, Grace almost said. Instead. Yes, sir. He smiled. Good. Then he walked away. Grace hated herself for staying silent. Across the city. Samuel sat alone in the church library. He was reviewing old ministry records when a dusty folder slipped from the shelf. Inside were resignation letters. Assistant pastors. Youth leaders. Choir directors. Almost all had left within the past 10 years. Each letter sounded strangely similar. I need time to focus on my family. I feel led in another direction. God is calling me elsewhere. Samuel frowned. Every letter used nearly the same language. Almost as if someone had written them. Before he could read further, the senior pastor entered. Samuel quickly closed the folder. The pastor smiled. What are you reading? Old records, sir. Curiosity can become rebellion. Samuel felt a chill. I understand. Do you? The pastor's smile never reached his eyes. Meanwhile. At the hospital. Amina noticed another nurse quietly clearing out her locker. You're leaving. The nurse nodded. I can't do this anymore. Did you find another job? No. Then why leave? The nurse looked around to make sure no one was listening. Because staying is slowly killing me. Before Amina could respond, the hospital director appeared. The nurse immediately forced a smile. It was wonderful working here, sir. So sorry to lose you, he replied warmly. As he walked away, the nurse whispered to Amina. Don't wait until you forget who you are. Then she left. At military headquarters, Daniel met an older retired officer. Without introduction, the men said. They're testing you. Daniel frowned. Testing me? No. The old officer corrected himself. They're conditioning you. So that impossible becomes normal. So that humiliation feels deserved. Daniel stared silently. The retired officer looked him directly in the eyes. Never let anyone convince you that abuse is discipline. Thousands of miles away. May searched through old university archives. She discovered several former graduate students had abruptly withdrawn from the same professor's supervision. No explanation. No interviews. Just gone. When she asked the department secretary about them, the woman became visibly uncomfortable. I think you should stop asking questions. Why? Because every student who asks those questions eventually leaves. That evening, Grace couldn't stop thinking about Michael. She searched old company newsletters. Finally, she found him. Michael Adeyemi. Employee of the Year. Outstanding Leadership Award. Fastest promotion in company history. Then, nothing. No farewell. No retirement announcement. No resignation notice. He had simply disappeared from the company's history. As if he had never existed. Grace whispered. What happened to you? Just then, her office phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello. A distorted voice spoke only one sentence. They're watching you. The line went dead. Grace slowly lowered the phone. Her hands were shaking. She looked around the office. For the first time, she noticed tiny security cameras in every corner. And she couldn't shake the feeling that someone wasn't just watching the building. Someone was watching her. As Grace packs her bag to leave, she discovers an unmarked flash drive hidden inside. There is no note. No label. Only a tiny piece of masking tape with 2 handwritten words. Play alone. She looks around the empty office. Who put it there? And what secret is waiting inside? The flash drive sat on Grace's kitchen table. She had barely slept. The anonymous files it contained were impossible to ignore. Meeting dates. Performance reviews. Emails. Private notes. Each document told the same story. Employees who questioned Mr. Adrian Cole were suddenly labeled difficult. Those who stayed silent were praised. Those who spoke up disappeared. Grace realized something terrifying. This wasn't random behavior. It was a carefully built system. The next morning, Adrian entered the office with his usual smile. Good morning, everyone. The staff greeted him enthusiastically. He stopped beside Grace's desk. I'll need you to present today's quarterly report. Grace froze. Sir. I wasn't informed that I would be presenting. You should always be prepared. But the finance department. He interrupted. Are you refusing? Every eye in the office turned toward Grace. No, sir. Excellent. He walked away without another word. Grace knew exactly what had happened. She had been set up to fail. 30 minutes later. The boardroom was filled with executives and investors. Grace stood before the projector. Her hands trembled as she opened the presentation. The slides were incomplete. Important financial figures were missing. She looked toward Adrian. He simply folded his arms. Continue. Grace struggled to explain the missing data. Questions came rapidly. She had no answers. Finally, Adrian stood. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. It appears my assistant wasn't fully prepared. The room fell silent. Grace felt every pair of eyes on her. Humiliation washed over her like a tidal wave. She tried to speak. Questions came rapidly. She had no answers. Finally, Adrian stood. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. It appears my assistant wasn't fully prepared. The room fell silent. Grace felt every pair of eyes on her. Humiliation washed over her like a tidal wave. She tried to speak. No words came. Her breathing became rapid. The room blurred. She collapsed. Across the city, Samuel stood behind the pulpit to deliver the Sunday message. His Bible was open. The church was full. He looked at the congregation. Then at the senior pastor sitting in the front row. His heart raced. Every previous criticism echoed in his mind. Don't smile too much. Your voice is too soft. You're embarrassing the ministry. You're not called enough. The words became louder. His vision blurred. The room began to spin. Samuel gripped the pulpit. Then everything went black. He collapsed before he could speak. The congregation